All right, we are INFR3110. That's Game Engine Design and Implementation in the fall 2020 semester at Ontario Tech University, and it's week 6, part 2 of our broadcast. We talked about flyweight pattern, and at the end, we talked in the last video around the object pool, and I want to kind of make this more complex object pool with our little example project. Okay, so let's go there together. So a couple of strategies for the in-class exercise here. So one, let's do it from here. So we start here in Unity, and I want to make a container class to do our work for us. So I'm going to right click here. I'm not going to attach it to anything yet. I'm going to go create new C# script. We're going to call this thing the Tilemanager. For now, it's going to be something we're going to attach to the game controller. Later on, we could make this a singleton if we want to, or something else. But for now, let's put it into the game controller. So on the game controller itself, I'm just going to collapse these two components and drag and drop the Tilemanager script onto it. You can also add component if you like. All right, so that's the first step. Just add a new script. I just call it Tilemanager. All right, so what will the Tilemanager do? Well, the Tilemanager, I'm just going to start coding. So the first thing that I want the Tilemanager to do is host a pool of tiles. And if we look at the structure that I've talked about here, the first thing is I want a private pool of tiles. That's the game object type that I want. Okay, so it's going to be a game object pool. So we're going to say private, right? And it's going to be of type queue. All right, so let's do a queue together. A queue of game objects. Okay, a queue of game objects. And we're going to call this the tile pool. Because it's private, I'm going to use m_tile pool. Okay, only because it's private. In C#, the requirement is not in Unity, but in C#, the requirement is that we instantiate the pool itself, because the pool container by default is not initialized in C#. So let's assume that we won't have mono behavior in some point in the future, and so I'm going to instantiate it in start right now. So the first thing is I'm going to instantiate it here. So I'm going to call this m_tile pool is equal to a new queue of type objects, game objects. So this just initializes the tile pool. Okay, and this declares, that's what we're doing here, declare a queue of type game object. Okay, we don't have anything in the pool right now. We need to have a number of tiles. So somewhere, somehow, we're going to have to get in here a maximum number of tiles that I want to accept. So I'm going to say, for now, I'm going to say max tiles, which is going to be of type int. Right? So I want an integer amount max tiles. We're going to make it public because this way it's going to be available outside of my class, right? Just to be safe, I'm also going to system.serialize this thing. So system.serializable. I'm going to make this so that it's available anywhere in my code. Okay, so these are the starting points. Tile pool, everything good. In order to make this work, I'm just going to collapse some of these areas here. So I don't need the start function much more right now. And so these little collapsible areas, I'm going to add another function. And the function that I'm going to add in is going to be public. And it's going to return a game object. Okay, the function name is going to be called getTile. All right. And what getTile is going to do, as you may have guessed, is it's going to go into the pool and it's going to pull a game object out of the pool and return it out. So by default, it would look something. We're going to modify this. I'm basically going to create a default temp tile. So we'll say temp tile like this is equal to if I look at the m underscore tile pool, and if I do a dequeue, right? What the dequeue function does, if you look at it, it returns a game object. So when I take it out, it actually returns a reference to it and stores it inside of temp tile. That's what it does. So it removes it from the pool. Cool. What I want to do is when it's removed from the pool, and only then, I want to set it as active. So I want to set active to true. Again, these are just temporary things. We may decide to do this somewhere else. For now, it's going to be, I'm going to take it and set it as active. If you don't like this, and if you don't want to set it as active, right, as an example, that's okay. But I definitely want to do something like this, where I set it as active. If I set it as active, it's going to do the whole random positioning thing. Okay, that's what it's going to do. So, and then I'm going to return it out. So I'm going to say return, right now, temp tile. So temp tile is going to return out of get tile. Get tile itself. And again, if you want to do comments, // right? Basically, it gives me a quick comment. It says return the game object tile. Someone's screaming at the top of their lungs behind me for some reason. There we go. That's what it does, right? And then what I want is, I know, it's my daughter somewhere in the background. She's just playing. She's drawing Deadpool, and she's freaking out because Deadpool's tough to draw the way she's drawn him. Okay, so and then what I want to do is I want to set tile, or instead of get tile and set tile, it's going to be get tile and return tile. So we want a public function that returns void, and we're going to call this return tile. The return tile function is going to take the tile that I want, so it's going to be of type game object. We're going to call it tile. And we're going to say that this tile is returned back into the pool. So what it's going to look like is it's going to say, hey tile, I want to onqueue it back into the pool. So I'm going to say m underscore tile pool dot onqueue. Onqueue is basically adding back the tile, right? And then the tile is going to be put back in. When I onqueue it, if we set it active as true on the way out, then we definitely want to set active as false on the way back in. Again, we may decide to change this because the implementation might be different. But for now, we're just going to have these as placeholders. So this is on the way out, and this is on the way back in. Again, if you think about what we're doing here, right? And if we were to draw it out for a second, let's just draw it out. I'm using Sketchbook Pro. Sketchbook Pro. Let's suppose I have a pool of tiles. So this is my pool of tiles, and I have each tile that's in the pool. There's one here. I have a pre-allocated set of tiles as an example, and this is like a queue, right? And then what I want to do is I want to put them inside here at the end, and then I'm going to pop them outside here. So this is going to pop out this way, right? So this comes out when I want it. This is the get tile function. So get tile, right? So get tile pulls it out, right? And then return tile, which is of type game object, call it tile, right? That puts it back in. And we'll just make that a little smaller so you can see it. There we go. Okay, so get tile and return tile. Return tile puts it back in there. Get tile takes it back out of there. That's what it's going to do. All right, knowing that then, we need something to build it up. We need a function that's going to be private that creates my tiles for me. Okay, I need to create the number of tiles based on the maximum tiles that I'm taking in. So I need a private function for that. First, let's comment this one. So // we'll say returns a game object tile back into the pool. So removes, we'll say, a game object tile from the pool. That's what this does. So it removes the tile from the pool, and this puts it back in. All right. Now we need a private function. We'll just put it over here for now. So we'll say private, and we'll call it, it's going to be of type void. right? And it's going to be build tile pool. Build tile pool. So this build tile pool is going to be called as soon as this thing is initialized. So as soon as I initialize the tile pool, I'm going to build it as an example, and it's going to be of maximum tiles. So here in my start method, I'm going to call build tile pool. Again, this is all the process for me to create this whole thing. Okay, and then I'll go over the code with you in a sec. So what does build tile pool do? Well, I'm going to do a for loop, right? And my for loop is going to be saying something from, let's say, count to max tiles, right? And we'll make this a var because it likes to be a var. So for count is equal to 0 to count is less than max tiles, I'm going to add a pool, an object to the pool. I'm going to do some pseudocode here just for a second, or comments. So I'm going to add, or we'll say on queue, right? A new tile. Okay, where is this new tile coming from? From the factory. So the factory itself is going to do the instantiation. Okay, factory is going to instantiate. The factory is going to pull it in there, and I'm going to bring this thing inbound into my tile pool as an inactive tile. It's not going to be active. All right, and I'm going to do it for max tiles. So I need to call the factory to do that. Now I have a factory method that I can use. I'm just going to do a side-by-side here, right? So when we think about this, so my tile factory, I'm just going to pull it over here for now. Here's my tile factory. And I know I have this create tile method. The tile factory is a singleton, so I can do this. By default, it does a couple things. Right? It allows me to create the tile, right? And it puts it inside of the game controller. So I don't have to worry about where the tile comes from. I don't have to worry what the tile is. It preloads everything for me. It even finds the game controller, right? That's what it does. So what I'm going to do here is do the exact same thing. I'm going to say, hey, tile factory, which is kind of already set up. Let's look at give me your instance. Here's my instance. And then I want to say create tile. I need a location for that tile. And by default, I'm going to modify this location later on. So again, we may change this later on. But for now, I'm just going to give it a empty vector3. Or we can go into our create tile and say if I don't give it a location, just give me something that's empty. Like this. Okay, so a new vector3 object. It should be the responsibility, single responsibility principle. It should be the responsibility of the factory in order for you to give me a tile. When I get my tile, right, I want to get it in a inactive state. So that means in the build tile pool, I want to put it in here as inactive. So I'm going to say that when I get this reference, before I put it in, I'm going to say var temp tile. I'm going to get a reference to the tile that I get in from the tile factory, whatever that is, right? And when it comes inbound, I'm going to say that temp tile dot set active, it's going to be equal to false. So I'm coming inbound as inactive. If it's inactive, the scripts can't work on it, which means it can't duplicate. Duplicate now will do something else than what it did before. Okay. Now we have to onqueue it. Let's do that. So we'll say that hey, tile pool dot onqueue my temp tile. Are you with me? And does this make sense what I'm trying to show you here? So, okay, so Kennedy, you're good. Awesome. Michael, I'm seeing you come inbound. Makes sense so far, Daniel. Excellent. Tile factory isn't highlighting. That's weird. Tile factory should be a singleton, so it should highlight. Remember that it's not something that you can drag and drop onto the thing. It's like, it's right here. And it should be system serializable, Roderick, so it should totally work. And if it's not highlighting, it could be because there's an error in your code somewhere. because Unity does this weird compilation step. All right, so hopefully you guys are with me at this point. I've made my tool pool. I've got a couple functions, and I'm following this pattern that I talked about before. So so far I have not made my Tilemanager a singleton. I'm not doing that yet. The first thing I want to do before anything else is make it work. It also can ask for my size, and if it's empty, I'm not going to do those little utility functions yet. This is just utility things as well. I don't need an init function right now because my start is going to be my init function right now. My client is going to be my game object, my game controller. My subject is going to be the tile itself, and my game object is going to be the tile. Okay. So that's the first step. So let's see now what it looks like in Unity. Okay, so Unity, I'm going to go back in here. I'm going to go to my game controller, and I should see two scripts. One is the game controller script, which hasn't changed yet. And the other one is my Tilemanager, which gives me maximum tiles. For now, I'm going to put a number in here, and it's going to be a small number, like 50. I just want to see that 50 tiles come up. We need to disable some functionality that's happening already inside the game controller. The game controller inside my game controller script is the thing that's generating the tiles at runtime. So for now, what I don't want it to do is I don't want it to generate the tiles through my game controller. I want to do it through my Tilemanager. So we're changing stuff up a little bit. So let's go back into my game controller script and take a look at that. So now here's game controller. Let's get rid of tile factory for now, right? Game controller does a couple things, right? It makes a list of tiles. This lists it. What this does right now is it keeps track of my tiles. Until this point, I needed it. Going forward, I'm not going to need it, right? I don't need to find out my list of tiles anymore, right? If I comment it out, the first thing I like to do when I remove stuff is comment it out, right? So don't just delete it. And then see where it comes up where there's a problem. So tiles count, tiles add new tile. New tile is going to get the factory, which I don't want to do here. In fact, this whole add tile thing is not what I want anymore. Not like this. It's not going to work like this anymore. However, I do want this functionality, which is, hey, make sure that the tile that I got when the new location that I'm generating is going to be the right location. For now, I'm just going to do a couple things. One is going to comment this part out just to make it work. And there's a bunch of places you can see that I've got issues. I'm using the tiles count everywhere, right? Tiles count, wait for seconds. Here's my threshold check and all this kind of stuff. Like there's a bunch of places here where I have to modify stuff. So tiles.count is greater than 0. Then I check to see if I have to reset and blah, blah, blah. Okay? Lots of places. Not worried because we can always uncomment stuff if we want to. But we're going to take away some of the functionality that's in here and put it somewhere else. So again, I'm going to comment this tile pool for now. And this whole thing needs to be commented out. So I'm just going to comment that out. And again, it's going to be hard to reduce this. I'm going to just return like a number, like tile count is 0 and semicolon. Definitely one of these because it's going to change the tile count to something that I want. I'm just going to put 0 for now. Actually, I don't have to do that. I can do, instead of tiles.count, I can just call the tile size function. So we can replace this to tile size toString, which is exactly what's happening anyway. Okay. So far, so good. My threshold check, it's an if statement. We're going to comment it out. Nothing's going to work in a second, but I want to see one thing happening at a time. Remember, we can always go back and comment it back in. I'm not worried about commenting it back in. I'm worrying about if it breaks. Breaking is a bad thing. Commenting it back in, easy thing. All right, so everything is commented out. I don't see anything in my mini map here that's telling me that there's a problem, right? And let's see what's happening. I'm going to reset. It's going to reset. After resetting, it's going to go. I'm just going to follow the path here of execution. It's going to go to here. It's going to say, hey, player, game object, get component. My character controller is enabled as false. It's going to generate my character controller. I need this still, right? Then we're going to add tile to 0. Again, I'm going to comment this out for now. I'm not going to comment. I'm not going to create a tile for now, nor am I going to start the core routine, just to make sure that things are good. Okay, so farthest tiles, blah, blah, blah. It should work now. It should basically generate my guy or my player. But how do I make my other function work, right? Because what's happening right now is my tile manager has to kick off somewhere. Well, because it's connected to my game controller, it's going to trigger by itself, right? So let's see how this works. I'm going to go, I've saved everything. I'm going to go back to Unity now, and hopefully there's no errors. Okay, I don't care about this right now. This is meaningless at this point. And let's play and see what happens. Right, cool. So let's see what I got. So in my game controller, I have 50 tiles. Notice that they're all disabled. Are you with me? So there's nothing happening, but this is exactly this is what I wanted. I wanted this to happen. I wanted it so I can generate a bunch of tiles that they're going to sit inside of my my game controller, right? Right now, you notice that my game controllers doesn't have anymore that tile list. It's not required anymore. Why? Because my tile manager's got all that stuff going on, right? Are you with me? Michael says yes. I got a couple yeses. Anyone else is watching? Logan, Kennedy, thank you. Guys, I got 7 or 8 of you. That's pretty good. Some of you are just watching. All right, so what do we do next? Now that we know that this part works, remember, what I like to do is compartmentalize my tests. I start off with one little test. I'm modifying something. Theory comes faster to you than programming. I hear you, Michael. I know it's tough because you have to try and apply your theory, right? But it's how do I apply what we've learned? So far we've just disabled stuff. Let me put this up on GitHub so you have what I have, okay? So I'm going to just tear this down. Remember, whenever we do stuff up online with Unity, we just shut it down. And then what we want to do with Unity is we want to pull up a command prompt to do GitHub or whatever you want to do. Your favorite GitHub tool, user interface, right? I like to use command prompt because that's me, but you can do what you feel comfortable doing. It doesn't matter to me how you get it up on GitHub, as an example, as long as you get it there. So here I'm going to go CD space, and I'm going to drag and drop my procedural code in there. There's procedural. And I'm going to say git add dot git commit -m, and I'll say created tile manager. And then git push. Okay, so you should have this code, and you can check my code with your code. It's up on GitHub now. Okay? So you can be able to check my code with your code, please. The code changes that I made are inside of the new Tile Manager class. So if I refresh, and if I go into Assets on GitHub, and inside of Scripts, you'll see it as tilemanager.cs. You'll see it right here. This is the stuff I just did. So you can always go through here and check to see what I've done. Okay, back to the code. Let's run it again. Okay, cool. So part 1 is done. I've been able to successfully implement my tile manager. Okay, now what do I want it to do? Now that I have my tile manager, how about if I try a bigger number? Before I go further than this, let's try a really big number and see if I have that many. Okay? Let's see how this works. So in my game controller, I have that other script called Tile Manager. Let's put in a large number like 20,000. Okay, and let's see what happens now if I press play. Does it work or does it crash? What happens? Yeah, no problem. And it happened pretty fast. I have good control. And you can see now that I have 20,000 tiles. If I go all the way to the bottom, I've labeled the tiles in terms of their hash ID, right? Hash code. And you can see that we're in the 24,000 range. So it's pretty cool. So it's totally running these 20,000 tiles, right? Pretty cool. So I can handle 20,000 and it's instant. There was nothing that didn't stop me. It didn't take time to create, nothing. All right, that was pretty cool. So that's a pretty good test. Let's bring this number down to something reasonable. Like, we'll make it so it's 100 tiles at first. So we want to check to see this instantiation stuff. All right, now we're going to retrofit what we already have. We know that in my duplicate code, what it's going to do is it's going to generate a random tile upon instantiation. It's going to, hey, I want to generate a random tile. The generate random tile is going to call a tile that's going to be created from the factory. Okay, that's what's going to happen. It's going to say, I need to add a tile, right? So generate random tile is going to say, okay, cool, very cool, thank you very much. And it's going to go, hey, game controller, I want to add a tile now. I want to add a tile to my new tile location. My tile location is really what my duplicate is going to do. That's all it's doing, right? What do I really want to happen? If I call my game controller add tile, and I don't want to touch this code because this code's working, right? Then I can modify my game controller code to access, instead of the factory direct, it's going to access my tile manager. So let's go back into the game controller to see what happens. All right, where is that add tile? Here it is. It's add tiles here. And before, what I was doing was I was adding an instance from my factory direct. Now I don't have to do this anymore, but I need a reference to my tile manager. So that means that at the top somewhere, I'm going to put a new reference. So where it says my tile layout or whatever, I'm just going to go up here and say I want a tile reference. I'm going to say public. We're going to call this, it's going to be of type tile manager. We're going to call it tile manager for now. Here it is. And inside my start function, before I get to my reset, I'm going to call my tile manager. Okay, so I'm going to say, hey, tile manager. Well, that's going to be equal to, I want to say get find objects of type tile manager. All right, so I'm going to make a reference. Instead of dragging and dropping, I'm going to make a reference like this. And I want to show it publicly so I can see that it's been made. Okay, now that I've got my tile manager there, let's uncomment this part, this first part here. So I'm going to uncomment this one part. So the first part that I'm sitting inside the add tile method, right? Cool. It says for tiles count. Tiles count. But I want to be able to get my tiles count not from my myself here, my max tiles, right? I could pass it in if I want to, right? But what I really want is my tile count to come from my tile manager. Okay? So in my tile manager, there's a couple of options. Right now, we don't have a way, we have max tiles in here as well, but we don't have a way of relating what this is unless I go tilemanager.maxTiles, whatever this is. So let's do it that way. So I'm going to go back into game controller, and inside here, I'm going to say tilemanager.maxTiles. This is the tile count. But this tile count, this is funny. Tile count keeps track of active tiles, the tiles that are actively in the scene. So theoretically, I could still use the list of game objects. My problem is when I undequeue them, they'll leave. We have to make them leave the queue somehow, leave the pool. If I use this active tile stuff, right? I need to be able to add it to this temporary tile to the pool. So again, if I put it back, I'm pulling it out here. There's advantage and disadvantage to doing all this. The advantage is, yes, we have it. The disadvantage is we'll have 2 references, which might make it a little bit messy. Let's put it back for now, and let's see what happens. So tiles count is less than max tiles, but we don't want max tiles to be here. We want it to be inside of Tilemanager. So we're going to say Tilemanager dot max tiles. So this is the first change. So tiles count less than equal to Tilemanager dot max tiles minus 1. Cool. New tile, instead of getting it back from the factory, we don't want this. Instead, we're just going to comment this part out. Instead of this, we want the Tilemanager to return a tile. So we'll say Tilemanager dot get tile, and it's going to get a tile, and I need to cast it at a specific location, right? So here's an opportunity for us to pass it in. So normally before what we would do is we would give the create tile a location, and in my Tilemanager what I did was I disabled that functionality. I said, hey, let's just not pass anything in there at all, right, when I pass it in. And my get tile itself, all it's doing right now is dequeuing and setting it to active. That's what's happening right now, okay? So instead of passing my location, right, out into my my creational area right there, what I could do is I could say get tile, and then underneath it, to make it functional just the same, I could say that my tile location, so again, location would be a vector3 object, right? So new tile dot transform dot position is equal to new location. This kind of does the same thing. Instead of me passing my location around, I can just do it right here. Again, I'm trying to retrofit. There's places later on where I could go in and fix this problem. All right. I add it to the new tiles. I have a new tile position. I can get the key. I can do all the same things I did before. Cool. Let's continue to uncomment. I definitely want to uncomment this part now as I start keeping track of tiles again, as I've retrofitted what I did. All right. So this is kind of a retrofit. I've taken the factory out, and now I'm using the Tilemanager, which has all my tiles. Cool. All right. I want tiles count. Let's put this back in. So it's going to return tiles count if I want the tile size. Let's keep going down. Inside my threshold check, this is okay, right? I'm going to state how many tiles I want. And now we get to the point where we think, okay, so if I put my tiles, would I put it in the threshold inside of my manager, or would I leave it there, or would I put it inside of my my game controller? For now, let's leave it as is. All right, so we can leave the threshold piece in there for now, just to make it work. Later on, we may have to move things around to make it better. Okay, so I'm just going to uncomment this because this is all working now. All right, I'm getting back to my reset function, and I'm checking to see if there's anything else I can do. I'm going to uncomment this part. I commented it out so I can check to see if the Tilemanager is working. Now I know it's working. I don't have to do this anymore, right? So I'm going to comment this out, or uncomment this again. We're almost down to the bottom, and I'm going to uncomment this out now. All right, put it back into play. All right, so far I've got everything that I had before. So I can get tiles, right? But how do I return tiles? There's got to be a place where I return tiles back in, right? So if I go back to reset, reset is the function that returns tiles. So I say if tiles.count, then my tile position clears, my tiles clear, and guess what I need to do? I need to send all my tiles back into I want to set all my tiles back into the thing. So instead of destroying objects, this is going to have to change. There's no more destroying. Here is where I'm going to return everything back into the pool. Every one of them. So let's go back into here, and I'm going to return them back into the pool. When it goes back into the pool, they're going to be set inactive. Okay, so let's try this out. So I'm going to say that, hey, Tilemanager dot return tile child, which is going to return my child dot game object back into the pool. And now I can get rid of this. We don't need to destroy anything. We'll just comment it out so we can have a sense of what was happening here before. Okay, I think I've done everything we need to do. Let's make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be and that nothing else is commented out that I need to use. Now remember, there's a few changes. Max tiles means nothing anymore, right? We don't care about max tiles here. Even though it's here, it means nothing. Threshold does mean something so far, right? But max tiles in my game controller has no meaning anymore. We care about max tiles inside of my tile manager. That's where we care about max tiles, inside here. Okay? Let's go back to Unity and see what happens. First of all, let's save all. Make sure that everything up here is saved. All right, let me go back in. We can check to see if my game controller is cool. Now it says farthest tile, we don't know. Tilemanager, I don't have a reference to Tilemanager, but we're going to get one. We only want to generate 100 tiles, and let's see if this happens. One thing to note is that right now we're going to have a clash because game controller has 10,000 tiles here. Let's make it so, for now, we'll just make it so that it's 100. So it's matching. We're going to take one of these away. Don't worry. Again, all we want to do is make it work right now. Later on, we can start refactoring and removing. Let's see if this works at all, or if I completely broke everything, right? All right, so there's a null reference error. And where is the null reference error? It says that temp tile, my temp tile is equal to mtilepool.dequeue, right, when I want to get tile, all right? I'm dequeuing. Now, we didn't have that problem before, but now suddenly we have that problem, right? So let's read the error. This isn't important. It says, a null reference error, object reference not set to an instance of an object, tile manager get tile at scripts tilemanager.cs. How is it possible that we got an error this time around when last time around we didn't get that error? What do you think could be the problem? I know it's kind of a hard thing to troubleshoot because, again, we have all these tiles here. These are all the tiles we got, right? These are all the tiles we got. Okay, so let's go back and let's see what it says. It says that we're trying to dequeue something here. Var temp tile is, I'm going to go to the tile pool, which is up here, right? And I'm dequeuing. I've never done this before. We never tried this dequeuing stuff, right? So what if the tile pool is empty, right? So let's see how big that is. We can say, let's do a bit of a debug. So we're going to do debug.log, and let's take and see how big the tile pool is at this point. So m_, tile pool .size or count. Sorry. And why is it giving me that? Yeah. Okay, so let me stop Unity. It generated the tiles, but it gave me an error. I'm okay with the error. I want to deal with the error. So let's try it again and see what I get. And I'm looking for my error. Let's go my window, into my general, into my console. Let's see. Let's take this and put it over here so I can see it. So in my console window, and let's see if I get the number of tiles. If I have 0 as the number of tiles, it means it's happening in the wrong order because of my coroutine. Let's see what I get. All right, so wow, before I even got there, it says object not set reference to an object, and this is in Tilemanager 46. So when I'm trying to dequeue it, right, I can't even get, it's like it doesn't even exist, my tile. So before I build pool, I'm trying to get a tile. That's what's happening here right now. Before I build pool, right? So why is this happening? Well, it's the order of operations that's going on right now. So in my game controller, let's think about the operations. I'm starting off my game controller, I'm resetting. Okay, here's when the reset happens. I get a reference to my tile manager here. Yay, this is great. I reset. Let's follow the operation. Okay, so I reset. I'm going down to here. I'm saying if my tiles count is greater than 0, no it's not. I'm going to go down to here, add tile, right? Add tile at vector 0. Okay, cool. Let's follow add tile all the way back up. So I go add tile at vector 0. Here's my new location, right? I set up my map, and then I come here for the first time and I say, hey, new tile, let's get a tile here, right? And the problem is, here's the problem, we don't know if I have my tile ready yet, right? I'm just getting one, whether I know it's ready or not, okay? And why is this failing? Well, because before I was accessing the factory, and now we don't know if this is triggered yet. So you're loading in fine with 100 tiles, and you see 100 tiles? Okay, so can you give me your code? Maybe did I do something different than you? Because I don't know what I did compared to what you did, but this should work. Wow. See what happens? I love it. I have the problem, but you don't, right? So let's keep going. Let's make sure that this is correctamundo, right? So again, I'm going to my Tilemanager. I'm just looping through here, and I'm getting a problem right here. In fact, when I get to my thing, you can change this if you really want to. I can change the script order. I can, right? The way to change the scriptable order of your files is it's in the project settings. So I can change which script runs first. Like for example, my Tilemanager should be probably running before I access it. Okay, that's what it's going to do. So what I can do is I can tell it to wait. I can say that keep trying to get a tile, right? So get tile. If my game object returns null, right? Then keep trying to get my object until you get one. I could do that, right? Or here where I'm getting my tile and I come to my tile pool, right? Wait until the tile pool is built when I'm getting one for the first time. The reason why it's not working now is because the tile pool, which is build tile pool, that's being built, right? In start, right? I could try building it on awake. Let's try this. So I can change this to awake, which is a kind of a function that happens earlier than start. Start happens after awake, right? So again, that's might be the reason why it's happening, but I doubt it. Let's try it again. Okay, now I'm good. So notice that it worked on awake, but it didn't work on start. And look at that, man. I'm good, right? And it did it pretty good for what I got. All right, there's my 100 tiles. If I press my mini map, I can still see my tiles and whatever, we're good to go. Great, fantastic. Okay, let's try this again. So now that I did that, and I put it on awake, guys, not on start, that makes sense. We can take this little debug away because it's going to reduce our effectiveness. Cool. Now that we did this, let's start with a bigger number, and let's see if that gives me a better performance or not. Okay. So again, I'm going to clear this up. I'm going to go to put 10,000 tiles here. I'm going to be brave and put 10,000 tiles here and 10,000 tiles here. Just to be the same for now. Eventually we're going to get rid of one of these, but I want to just do testing to make sure it works. Let's try and kick it off and see what happens. So run. Dude. Okay, so it didn't do it this time. And do I get any better performance if I'm noticing a better performance count or not? Remember that it's happening, but it's happening based on my my algorithm, right? That's what's going on. My algorithm is the thing that's driving it in the first place. But it seems to be a little bit quicker, to be honest with you. So this is the actual build. Let's see how we can actually see this is kind of like a genetic algorithm, kind of. All right, and it'll keep on generating it forever. Yeah, you can go to execution order for sure. So what do you think? Do you think it's worse? Do you think it's better? Is it working better for you? Worse for you? Same? What do you think? Like, to me, it works worse. Same-ish. Mine's worse even than what it was before. Right? Because I'm like getting like one tile sometimes. My count is low, low, and I'm not getting the tile threshold that I want. Now, this could be because of a couple reasons. One, there's a disconnect between my Tilemanager and my tile generation scripts. Okay, let me show you where that is. So, again, There's still work to be done, but we've implemented the object pool. So let's go into my my reset function. Okay, so my reset function again is inside of my game controller, right? So it does one of these. I can reset by pressing R, or the threshold check is going to automatically reset me after 5 seconds. If my tiles count is less than the max tiles times the threshold. All right. Now here's what I don't want. I don't want the max tiles here. I want to make sure that these max tiles are from Tilemanager. Not going to make a difference. Okay, but I'm just saying this is more a little better max tiles. Because remember, we're going to move our threshold out of here eventually. Because it doesn't make sense. So this is where I'm going to do it. It's inside of a coroutine. My coroutine is triggering whenever it feels like. Okay? So that's what's calling reset. Reset, what it does is it's clearing things up and respawning the player object, right? But right now I'm waiting for 5 seconds. It says 5 seconds. It doesn't seem like 5 seconds to me. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make it a longer time. Let's make it 10 seconds. Give it a chance to spawn, is what I'm saying. So 10 seconds instead of 5 seconds. By the way, this is not going to make a lot of change. You'll see what's going to happen here. All right, let's try it again and see if there's a difference in what we had. And let's go to a smaller number than 10,000. So I'm going to go back to check it. Let's go with 1,000 tiles. Okay, for now. And let's see how that works. 1,000 tiles, no problem. Look at that. And here's my mini map. Right? See, it works okay. And I'm pretty big. And if I look at the scene itself, you can see that here's my algorithm. And just to get a sense of what that looks like, I'll put it into kind of a top-down view so you can see what the tiles look like. Okay. And what about if I press R? Will I get the same number of tiles? So I'll press R. That'll regenerate the tiles. Does that R function work? And by the way, you can't see how many tiles I have because of this. Did I only get 1 tile? Did I get 10 tiles? What happened? So reset. When I reset, that's another thing that's happening here. I'm only getting a single tile when I reset. That's not cool. Where's the reset function coming from when I press R? So R actually does not what I'm expecting it to do. The reset function, which is probably the cause of my problems. So let's go back and see what reset does. So reset goes in here. It checks tiles count is greater than 0. It clears the tiles up, change the position. And it says, I want to return each tile back to the, back out, right? I want to put my single tile back in. That's what this does. So then I disable the tile. That's what this does. Reset my player, add tile, and it worked the first time, but not this time. Why? So let's see what add tile does, because add tile seems to be broken, right? Well, it's going to say, hey, if my tiles count is less than or equal to the max tiles that I'm looking for, -1, then go do the same thing again, okay? Get more tiles. And it seems like there's a disconnect in how this is working compared to what it was before. I haven't changed the actual functionality, but it seems to me that what's happening is when it gets returned back into the Tilemanager through my return tile, so set active false, I on-queue it again. I'm not killing the tile, I'm just putting it back into the pool. Right? So it receives the tile back into the pool. All right. So again, there's some stuff to check. Step sound effects. That's all built into the default controller. So when I do it the first time now, when I generate this the first time, I might get or may not get the number of tiles. But the second time it resets, right? Given enough time, there's a good chance it'll fail. Right? That's 981. That's pretty good. So when I try and press the reset button by myself, no good. If I press R now, it's going to give me one tile. It's like, doesn't give me enough. It doesn't do what the reset's supposed to do. So reset seems to be broken, right? And we can figure that out. All right, let's go back and do more tiles. Let's do 5,000. So 1,000 is not a problem, and it does it pretty quick. How about 5,000? Let's see if we can measure it by, us. So this is 48. Didn't do enough. Let's reset and see what happens. It's going to reset after 10 seconds. It's going to give us a chance to do it again. There's 87. Obviously not enough, right? Remember, the way that the algorithm works is it can turn back on itself to give itself whatever it's going to be. Sometimes we'll get like 4 tiles like this, and sometimes we'll get many more. So we're not getting a lot this time around, right? It's like I said, we need to tweak the algorithm a little bit because we're moving from one type of code to the other. Oh, there we go. Look at that. That wasn't quite 10,000. Oh, it's so close, right? Or not quite 5,000. We asked for 5,000. We got 4,926. That's pretty cool, right? So that is what it looks like. And again, I think it generated it pretty nicely. This is what it looks like. Okay. Let's get, now if I press R, unfortunately that's broken, right? So that doesn't do what it's supposed to do. My resetting, that manual reset is not a functionality that works. Let's see why that is. Let's see if there's something that I do manually that does it differently in my game controller. Then we'll end for the day, all right? So that happens in update. Update basically says, hey, if I press R, then turn on reset. So what's the difference between this reset and my threshold check reset, right? So reset and threshold check reset does something totally different, right? It's almost like on update, what I really want to do is, again, my threshold check is happening when I generate my tiles in the first place, right? So this is when threshold check is being called, right? So that's going to be happening when I first add my tile. When I reset itself, it's going to start the threshold check, right? Well, the threshold check is going to see, it's going to wait 10 seconds, right? Look at this, what's happening. And then it's going to check to see if my count is less than my Tilemanager max tiles. And then it's going to reset again, right? But after 10 seconds. Okay? And somehow or another, when we come to this point here and add a new tile, this tile that's being added, right, which is at vector 0, so go back to go to definition. When it comes back here and does this again, the second time around, it doesn't work. So we're gonna have to, again, we're gonna have to figure this out. I have to do a little bit of digging to figure out what this is, but for the most part, it works okay. Let's try a bigger number. Let's try 10,000. I couldn't accomplish it before. Maybe I can accomplish it now. It's true. I call more subroutines every time I call reset. So the more I press R, the faster the resets happen, and I don't want that to happen. So that's an issue for sure. All right, so that, no. Should reset by itself now. There's my little friend. 228. Didn't do really what I wanted to do. Didn't do it. And this is all random stuff, right? Because it's not doing what I'm supposed to do. Like the first few tiles, it does no problem. But then afterwards, it stops. Again, I think there's a better algorithm improvement we can do on the random spawning that would help a lot. Right? I think that's part of it. That's why it's going to continue to try. That's more promising. I don't think it's going to be enough. Ooh, it made it. It just made it. Cool. All right, let's see what I got here. I want to see my scene. And that's pretty massive, guys. Look at that. I still think we have a performance improvement. But again, we'd have to run the performance monitor to see that. And that would be something we do on performance day when we do our Unity performance monitor, which we have to talk about. So I shouldn't run out of tiles for the pool. And what's happening is duplicate stops being called or something. Yeah, and I have to go through it. And again, guys, this is hand in what you have. This is the example that I wanted you to go through just to build the pool. We built a pool together, and the idea here is that we're trying to improve performance. All right, that's what we're trying to do. All right, any questions around the stuff we did? So again, to get your bonus marks, complete your code and hand in your link to your repo, and that should be good enough. As long as your code is working, it's all good. Any questions or any kind of comments before we end for the day? Because we're kind of at that point. It's okay if we miss something with the changes. What do you mean, Roderick? I can put it up on GitHub for you. Whatever you see on GitHub. If you want to try and make it work on your end. The most important thing is that you got what I did. You understand what the process when I built the pool. Okay, just before we go then, I want to talk about a couple things before we go, because next week is an important week. Next week, when we get together, guys, and I'm recording this for everyone else. Remember that next week when we get together, I'm going to be looking at checkpoint 2. So project checkpoint 2, when we get together, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing you did last time, which is we're going to get together. I want to take a look at the same 5 minutes I'm going to spend with you guys. You're going to do a little bit faster than you would with James and go over your group project update for me when it comes to the stuff that you're doing for your group project for GDW. So that's what I'm looking at next week. So when we get together, I want it to be no longer than 5 minutes. So it means you have to take your presentation that you did for James and pare it down a little bit, just a little bit. And then talk about the updates. Show me the working code. I kind of know what you're building already. And I wanted to look and see what you're doing for next week. So that's happening. I'm also going to give you group assignment 2. And on Wednesday, you should get your individual assignment 1 in your lab. So please make sure you get to be in lab on Wednesday. Otherwise, we'll talk about more stuff. Memory optimization and managing memory. Next week, I'm gonna go do a whole memory management thing where we kind of look at things like how do I do memory profiling in Unity. I'm gonna do that whole thing next week. So please make sure you make it because this is definitely important for your project. Okay? Any questions about the stuff that we covered today? If there are no questions, then guys, I'm gonna stop recording now. And I'll see you guys next week. I'll stick around for people who have questions one-on-one with me after.